Hi, this is Heidi, episode 103, Being Wrong. Life isn't a spectator sport. Success comes to those who show up every day with a pocket full of courage, grit, and a little sparkle. I'm glad you're here. Hello. How are you all? How is your fall going? I hope you've settled into a nice routine. Please continue to like, rate, review, and share this podcast. Maybe you need to show a friend or sister how to access podcasts on their phone. Many people don't know how to access podcasts. If you subscribe in the app you listen to this in, you'll get a notification each Wednesday of a new episode. I am a huge podcast listener. I listen to so many. It's been fun to find some that I can listen to with my children as well. Okay, jumping right in. Today, I want to talk about being wrong. Okay, stay with me. I can hear some of you saying, well, I'm never wrong, or I don't like being wrong, or I don't like to admit my mistakes. It isn't fun. I see you, I hear you, I am you, and this is a big and being wrong is secretly where our life can suddenly be so much happier. I swear, I promise. I've lived it. When we can admit we are wrong, when we can change and grow, seriously, we are way less offended. We are happier people. We attract a whole different vibe and energy into our life, and it's awesome. And this is where our confidence skyrockets. It seems like it wouldn't be this way, but it's true. The more we can admit we are wrong and be open to other opinions, ideas, truths, this is when we become very confident people. People who have to be right all the time are very insecure and arrogant, both of which are the opposite of confident. So please give me these few minutes, and I hope to show you benefits to admitting when we're wrong and some ways to gracefully do it. And next week's podcast will dovetail off this idea even more. So by now, y'all know I end up teaching you a bit about your brain as we discuss a topic. And that's because it's important for all of us to know what's going on inside our brain so we can have more power over our thoughts and emotions. We will know how to pivot out of our insecure brain up to our higher, confident brain when we aren't afraid of the insecure thoughts. On default, our brain wants to be right more than it wants anything else. It wants to be right more than it wants you to feel better. It wants to be right more than it wants you to lose weight. It wants to be right more than it wants you to repair a relationship with your sister or your neighbor. And knowing this helps us understand our brain's tendency toward confirmation bias. We accept and see evidence in the world around us that confirms we are right. And we discount or ignore evidence that would prove we're wrong or prove there are other perspectives to consider. We don't have to look very far to see that happening in the COVID vaccine discussions going on right now in the fall of 2021. If you think the vaccine is bad, you can live in an echo chamber and be fed evidence that this is the right thing to think. If you think the vaccine is helpful, you filter out any evidence that might prove the vaccine has been hurtful to people. On a less controversial issue, if you have a belief or think it's, quote, right to use cash or pay cash for every purchase, then you might discount and ignore any evidence about the benefits and protection of using credit cards. So our brain will prove whatever thought we give it as true, and our brain will look to continuously prove our existing biases and opinions are right if we leave our brain to operate on default. And when we gather this evidence, our brain gets a quick dopamine hit and it feels good. In today's world where we can get information and news and commentary 24 hours a day from any perspective, our brain will want to live in an echo chamber, like I mentioned before, because we'll constantly feel good, because we'll feel right all the time if our values and opinions are reinforced nonstop. Not only this, the world we live in rewards being right and punishes being wrong. Higher grades are rewarded with certificates and awards and compliments. Lower grades get reprimands, leading to doubt, insecurity, and maybe shame. Our world reinforces being right as meaning we are right. The world reinforces that we are better if we're right, and reinforces being wrong will produce a bad consequence, embarrassment, and even rejection from groups and belonging. And all of this feeds the anxiety culture with youth and adults that is only growing. On default, our brain thinks when we're right, it means we're smart and awesome. And we then resist like crazy being wrong. We resist learning new opinions, new facts that might change our minds. We resist trying new and challenging tasks. We resist learning about different perspectives, all because our brain is trying to protect us from some negative emotions. Learning about this default programming our brain comes wired with has really been transformative for me in learning how to manage my brain and learning how to grow and change and build my confidence, and has helped me learn to embrace being wrong, to really like finding where I'm wrong, because I know being wrong is not only accepting reality, but is also the place where I become a bigger person. So if being wrong is so critical to our path to becoming a new and more confident person, we should be open to being wrong. But this could also shake our identity. Changing opinions can feel scary because we might go through an identity crisis, trying to decide who we are with new beliefs and opinions. I struggled in my 20s to identify as someone who was a working professional when I really hadn't had lifelong aspirations to be so dedicated to a career. I had been wrong about the path my life would take, and my identity wavered for well over 2 years as I tried to align my opinions and beliefs with the talents I was discovering and not having my first child until I was 31 years old. Looking back, I can see the mental and emotional tension I created by thinking one path was right for me and not being willing to easily change and grow. I made life heavier than it needed to be because I wasn't willing to be wrong. Now, before I give you some very practical tools on how to admit being wrong and more examples of my own, or admit others could be right, let's go through the very real dangers of needing to be right all the time. First, like I touched on before, we shut down learning new things. I recently heard that some scientific experiments won't even be approved if the scientists think they know what the outcome will be. The scientists need to be open to finding new truths and results. I've loved using the Waze app on my phone to go to places I've gone in town. I've totally embraced learning new, quicker routes, learning where streets in my town go, seeing new homes, all because I decided there could be more information that I don't know. There could be more efficient and better routes. Okay, the second danger of always being right is we stay stuck in perfectionism, which is built on very insecure foundations. Nothing solid holds up our perfectionist tendencies. One of the biggest dangers of perfectionism is all or nothing thinking, which only thinking that there are right or wrong options reinforces. This is one reason our brain always wants to be right, because if we give our brain only two options, of course, we're going to fight like crazy to stay right, because who wants to be in the defeating place of always being wrong, being the loser in a game when only one person wins and one person loses? When we can allow that there are many great or quote right ways to be a mother, to be healthy, many great ways to set rules in our home, or many great paths our children might take, we dismantle this perfectionist tendency little by little. Thinking there's a right or wrong way to eat healthy or lose weight or gain muscle means we aren't open to learning and changing, because we think changing means we were wrong before. Many people weren't willing to admit how harmful the low-fat diets of the 80s and 90s were. Now, were these, quote, wrong? Well, they were harmful, and we've learned from them. Nobody got healthier following those low fat and high sugar guidelines. This is where we need to adapt the mindset that we're doing the best we can with the information we have. And when new information is available, we want to incorporate that and be willing to change. Another danger of needing to be right is we create distance between us and other fellow humans, and we may even damage relationships. I know I was never fun to be around when I lived with this soundtrack in my head that I was right all the time. It's off-putting. It reeks of arrogance, and I can see how I created distance at times in my life by needing to be the one with the right opinion or the right idea or the right route to the restaurant or the right whatever. It's tiring to be around people like this. It projects an unwillingness to accept other ideas, other people, and their perspectives. And all of this keeps us small. I've seen strained relationships because one person insists they're right on how events happened. The courts are filled with families disputing the quote right way to split property or assets. So notice here how our brain so bad wants to be right on default, even at the expense of a relationship with a loved one. This is where we have to ask ourselves, what is winning or being right costing me? Is it worth it? Do I like who I'm being through this process? What could I gain in a relationship by being willing to be wrong every so often? Answering these questions with true humility is where our confidence grows. I used to look at the online school grade reporting systems and assume I was right to interpret grades and scores or missing homework as what had happened. I strained relationships with my children by assuming what I saw was right. It took me a while to wiggle loose, needing to be right and embracing that I was probably wrong. When I assumed I was right, I approached my children in an attacking way, making them defensive and closed down. When I realized it was okay for me to be wrong, my children saw I was open to hear all the details surrounding something I saw, and I didn't do things to damage our relationship. All because I realized I could be wrong. My relationships and friendships are so much stronger and more genuine as I work to admit being wrong or admit other ideas and perspectives should be what we work around, not necessarily my ideas. I'm right now starting to plan a holiday party for our church group, and I know decades ago I would have wanted it done my way. And intentionally now, I know my ways aren't usually the best, and I'm trying to surround myself with people I know will have better ideas and can make it better than I would make it. Okay, another way damage can be done to relationships is if we go into relationships with opinions that other people should be who we want them to be, that we know best how an employer should be, how a neighbor or a sister or friend should be. When we can admit that other people know best who they should be, when we can admit we're wrong that other people should be different, this is where magic happens in relationships. We can start to see and appreciate them exactly as they are, warts and imperfections and all just like us. Being wrong about how often a friend needs to call or text, or when they give a gift or not. Being wrong opens up the possibilities for so many more people to be our friends. One last danger of needing to be right all the time is we keep ourselves stuck in hurtful and even sometimes inaccurate stories of our past. When we grip so tightly to our painful stories and how right we were to act and feel a certain way, and how wrong someone else was, or how wrong it was that something happened a certain way, we stay stuck and we can't move forward. Moving forward doesn't require us to like what happened in the past, but we can move forward when we can believe it's possible I don't remember everything about that event, or it's possible I don't know all the factors that went into why that happened that way. Years ago, I heard a story of a girl who insisted that she wasn't picked for a high school basketball team because the coach didn't like her, and it was reported to her that he had made disparaging comments about her. She held on to the story and it defined her. She retold it over and over. It was like a cancer that grew inside her, and she then thought every coach was out to get her, and she tried out for less and less teams. A few years later, in a random encounter with the coach and some school leaders, she found out it wasn't true at all. There were caps and limits put on the team that particular year that had nothing to do with the girls who tried out. And the coach actually said to her that he was disappointed that she didn't try out the next year. I try to use the rule that anything someone tells me has the possibility to be wrong or is missing information. And as often as I can, I need to seek out original sources and also give people the benefit of the doubt. Now, in the case with this girl and others we encounter, it's true. Some people may not like us. I then go to work believing that their opinion actually has nothing to do with me and is a reflection more of them. When I'm trying to open my brain to allow new information so I don't get stuck in a bad opinion, I keep asking, what am I not seeing here? What information do I not have? What other options are there? Imagine the emotional and mental flexibility we model to our children when we can apologize to them when we're wrong or when we jump to conclusions. I tell my children, I made an assumption. I'm sorry. Please tell me more about that. Our children need to see that it's emotionally mature and healthy to admit when we're wrong, and that it means nothing about our self-esteem or our self-value. I try to model I don't know as much as possible when it's true, so my teens know it's okay not to be certain, or it's okay to need to find out more information, or it's okay to admit our experience is limited and we want to learn more before we make opinions. Saying and believing I don't know is a confident place to be. Having to be right all the time, remember, is insecure and arrogant. Being willing to say, I don't know, shows humility, another trait of confident people, versus needing others to think that we're right and always needing external validation to feel good about ourselves. So I have a challenge for you. Find one thing to be wrong about every day. Every day. Try to admit it and say it out loud. Say you thought the recipe was different and you were wrong about quantities. Say you set the alarm for the wrong time. Say you had the time off for the meeting. You get the point. Admit you read the contract wrong, or admit you misspoke. Do it every day to real things, and you'll notice two things quickly. This will grow your confidence to be willing to be wrong, and you'll see there is no emotional danger to being wrong or changing your mind. Doing this daily will normalize being wrong as a part of our everyday life, that it's a part of being a human who wants to learn and grow, and that it means nothing bad about us as people. Just today, I swore I had paid for my daughter's tennis, and I was about to tell the club I thought the bill was inaccurate. I had a thought to check our credit card statement, and sure enough, I was wrong. And the bill was right. Being willing to be wrong prevented me from being accusatory. And since I figured it out before I called them, I just had to pivot my own thoughts. I'm constantly asking, what if I'm wrong about that? How is that possibly not true? These questions get me out of my lower insecure brain and help me use my higher confident brain. When I think I'm right about what someone else should be doing, I ask, can something else be right for someone else? Is it possible my opinions about the vaccine are not how another person should feel about their health? Thinking this stops me from making offensive and arrogant and inappropriate comments which drive wedges between people. If we're willing to be wrong and admit someone else could be right, we can immediately stop tensions from escalating. We can drop our defenses. Over a year ago, I posted something about the coaching model I am trained in, and another certified coach that I don't know personally private messaged me to tell me that I was wrong in what I posted. I felt defensive at first. Then, after processing it and asking myself, how do I want to respond? Who do I want to be? I simply replied with 4 simple words. You could be right. Period. Which is true. She could be right. I had nothing to lose or gain by being right or wrong in this situation. So why not graciously be open to all outcomes? I love being wrong about assumptions I've made about others, because what happens is I usually feel more love and compassion and empathy, which feels good to me. Traveling to other countries with an open mind and eyes to see others as equal humans has allowed me to be wrong with biases that I unconsciously had. I've seen so many ways to celebrate holidays and so many ways to just live life. We spent 2 weeks in countries where the weekend was Friday and Saturday. Their Sunday was the first day of the school and work week. Are they right or wrong? Are we right or wrong? What if we're both right? Being wrong lowers our resistance to growth and creating bigger futures. I was wrong for several years that I would serve a mission for my church. I really thought I wouldn't. Being willing to be wrong about that allowed me to have an experience I couldn't have had any other way, and which changed my life. I'm glad I was wrong about that. I'm glad I was wrong about qualities my husband would have. I remember making a list of who my future husband would be when I was about 17 years old. Now, side note, it's clearly ridiculous. I wasn't focusing on me being the best version of me, but that's a whole other podcast. I'm glad my husband isn't many of those things, and I'm glad he's exactly who he is, even when occasionally I think he should be different. I'm always wrong there too. I'm glad I was wrong about my children needing to take piano lessons until they were 16, or even being in the very top academic classes. I'm glad I've been wrong about benchmarks that insecurely I wanted so I could feel good. Instead, I can support my children to be exactly who they are, and I can have increased love for them. Years ago, a close friend of mine was adamantly opposed to a charter school in town, and she openly campaigned against it. As the year approached for her son to go to the starting grade of the school, she realized that school was the best option for her son, and she wanted him to go there. Admitting she was wrong opened up a huge opportunity for her son and family, as her children have thrived there. She's so glad that she humbled herself enough to change her mind. I'm glad I've opened my mind to see where I wasn't right with some big social and religious and cultural ideas that I had earlier in life. Being wrong about these things has made me a better and more loving human, a version that I'm improving every day. Yes, will being wrong feel vulnerable and sad and disappointing at times? Of course. As we practice being wrong at least once a day, we'll see these feelings pass much faster than we think, and we'll get excited by how much more we're learning and growing and confidently showing up in the world. Keep me posted on how this challenge goes for you. I'll post some of my own progress. We only have being offended and defensive to lose, and confidence and security and better relationships to gain. That's it for this week. If you would like personalized, private, one-on-one coaching to help you learn how to be wrong and more confident, sign up for a consult call at HeidiBenjaminson.com. A confident mother is the greatest gift to her family, not a perfect mother. Our families want us to feel confident, anchored, and calm. I can help you uncover this version of yourself. Have a great week.